I'm here with Danielle today, and we are talking all things maternal mental health. So, just to start, I feel like with the entire world history of pregnancy, labor, and delivery, that we'd be so much further along as a species in understanding the challenges with these experiences. So I wonder, what do you think gets in the way of having honest, open discussions about real life experiences and difficulties that come along with pregnancy and the birthing process?
I think a couple things get in the way. I think the most prominent one that comes to mind is shame. That there is shame around someone not experiencing what they both internally and externally get messages about in terms of what this experience should be like. So it should be the most beautiful, joyful, bonding experience of your life, right? Best day of your life ever when you give birth.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, for many, many people, that is not the case at all. And so then they're then left with this feeling pretty immediately of that there's something wrong with them. And so we're not talking about it. People are not saying it out loud because they're afraid. They're afraid of being judged, that they don't love their child. They're afraid of like how shamed they're going to feel, both from whether it's family or medical professionals or themselves.
Ugh, and it's so hard, right? Because what I'm hearing then is the only stories we are hearing are the positive stories. So we're really only getting half of it,
Exactly.
not
Yes.
all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, what drew you to perinatal, postnatal work, and how has your training benefited you and also your clients?
So, what drew me is my own journey with postpartum depression. I experienced postpartum depression pretty severely for the better part of 3 years. And it was only through finding the right person to talk to, finding the right medication to take, and saying the words out loud. And having, not just saying the words out loud, but having um, my people believe me and support me and validate me. And without that, I wouldn't be in the place I am, 5 years later. My twins are going to be 8. And so 3 years of really deep depression around that and trying to function around that. Um, in terms of my training, I as I healed, I then made the decision that I wanted to help others who were feeling the same way or are feeling the same way that I did. And I think through that, both through the personal experience and then the training, I have a deep understanding of what goes on for somebody, a connection. It feels very authentic. Um, I also feel like it's all about the validation and the normalization of what somebody is experiencing. And so making sure to bring that into the room when I'm meeting with somebody.
Right. And just able to hold space for someone who might be saying out loud for the first time to you that it isn't this joyous
Right.
experience or instant bonding experience that either they were expecting or also received, pressure from outside sources to receive it as this
Ex-
joyous time in their life.
Yep. That's exactly it. And I think that's the biggest thing is that for a lot of people that are coming in, this is the first time they've said these words out loud to anybody. And it's a realization for them also.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
What do you think is the most common reason new moms or new parents, could be dads too, right, seek treatment during pregnancy or postnatally?
I think a couple of things happen for people. I think there are people that certainly feel like they want to have kind of all their ducks in a row, so to speak. Like I don't want to experience these things, this XYZ. Um, so whether that's anxiety, depression, whatever have you, it could be somebody who has experienced anxiety and depression outside of pregnancy or postnatal, and they want to make sure that they're kind of coming into the birthing process and being a parent, kind of best foot forward. For other people, they are actually experiencing an increase in depression and anxiety. Sometimes some OCD starts presenting itself. So, that in itself, they'll come in because they're acutely experiencing that. And it may not be something that they've experienced in the past.
Okay. And you just said an interesting word to me, anxiety, and you also brought up OCD. And, I think a lot of times when we hear the word postpartum, we're conditioned to think of depression because that's what information is out there. That's what's being talked about. That's where the research primarily has been. And in fact, when we go to follow-up screenings with OBGYN offices or even pediatric appointments with newborns, right? The screening tools the parents are given or the moms are given are Beck's depression scale or PHQ-9 to, assess for major depressive disorder or suicidality risk. And I wonder, what about postpartum anxiety and why isn't this part of the discussion?
I think that part of it at least is around this. Well, being a new parent or being a parent again, there are worries that come with that, right? So I think that a lot of times when we talk about anxiety, it'll often get brushed off as, oh, you're just worrying too much. Oh, you're just new to this, or just, right? And meanwhile, when you're talking about postpartum anxiety or postpartum OCD, those are things that are all consuming. Those are things that interfere with someone's ability to function, to move forward in their day, to really take care of themselves and sometimes take care of their children. Like we really need to start talking about not just the depression, but also the anxiety and the OCD that comes.
I feel like there's just so many barriers to entry for people to have these discussions too, because like you said, there's just all this mounting pressure that you've got it all together. Things are going well. And so it's easy, I think, too, right? Like on the parent side, to minimize it for ourselves if we're just being given a screening as opposed to having open dialogue with one of our providers.
Right. And again, even back to that shame and sitting in the doctor's office and saying, oh, the only things that I should possibly be feeling are the things on this list. And I'm feeling something that it's not on here. So there must be something wrong with me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So tools are great for liability like purposes, right? But not for practicality and not for authentic connections
No,
or open dialogue.
exactly.